Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like
Hey, 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 hey,
Show
hey,
them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
hey, everybody.
Right now.
Create that energy. Let's
Baby,
go.
I'm as young
I'm
as the
Kat, and
night.
this
I wanna
Brenda,
dance right
and you
now.
are watching
Babes
Babes Unscripted.
Unscripted.
Hey, guys, listen. First and foremost, I want to say I have been sick, so you got to excuse my voice, but I'm in here today. I'm in here, baby.
Yes,
Yay.
welcome, everybody. So excited
Rain
to
and
have
shine.
you.
Welcome.
Today, we have with us a beautiful guest,
Yes.
Sue Bounlutay. So excited to have you on today.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Sue.
Happy to be
Welcome,
here.
Sue.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. You guys are just so fun. I love your energy and your beautiful faces.
We love yours too, Sue. We love yours too.
Yes,
you.
I think you are a beautiful woman, Sue. So
Thank
just to give everybody a little bit of background about how we met Sue. I met Sue in Dallas at a Tony Robbins event, Unleash the Power Within. And it was time to do some partner work together. And Sue was so amazing. I just want to thank you so much, Sue, because in that partner work, I was asked to kind of talk about my needs and what my top needs were, and I hadn't realized what they truly were. And you pointed it out so eloquently to me, and it really made a tremendous breakthrough for me. So yeah, so I'm just so happy that you did that. And after we had that partner work together, we sat next to each other, and I just loved your energy so much. You were just such a ball of fire and passion, and I was like, I have to keep in touch with this beautiful woman. So we exchanged contact information, and here we are today.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes, I know. I remember we weren't even sitting in our chairs, right? We were out in the little hallway, and I'm just like bouncing around. I'm on like a total high. For whatever reason, you and I happened to stop, and it's just like, like, oh,
I love it.
Yes,
yeah,
amazing
absolutely.
connections.
Yeah, no, that was, truly amazing. And, Kat, whether you realize it or not, you also had an impact on me at that, at that event as well. And I remember as I was dropping into it and thinking, oh no, I'm going to lose it. And then all of a sudden I hear from out of the corner, Sue, I hear you. I see you. You're wonderful, Sue. And the moment you did that, I just went, oh, okay, I am back. Right? So
Beautiful.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you. It's the power of community, right?
absolutely.
And then the
Yeah.
energy there, the energy at UPW, just, everyone's on fire. Like everyone's just, energized. So that brings us together as well. Feels really good.
Absolutely. So Sue, I had an amazing conversation with you the other day. We were chit-chatting on the phone, and we were talking about defining moments in our lives, right? And you had such an amazing story. And I loved your story so much, and I was wondering if you wanted to share.
Absolutely. And, I think so many of us have stories, right, when we're young. And my story started when I was around 8.5 years old. And as you probably can tell, English is my second language. So I've always kind of been a little bit sensitive about that. So if that comes out, you know why. But that event, going back to 8.5, I'm originally from Laos. And just in case you don't know where that is, because it's like this little itty bitty country out in the middle of nowhere in Southeast Asia. It is by Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, so in that little region. If you know a little bit about history, you're in the 70s, right? That's when the Vietnam War kind of hit and created a lot of turmoil. And so in the late 70s, my family, when communism came and the government fell, my family were one of the politicians there. And so I had to flee. And my mother and I, in the middle of the night one day, I found myself at a strange place. And in the middle of the night, we were kind of ushered out of the house in the pitch black. And the next thing I know, we were just literally running through the bamboo forest. It was so incredibly dark. I couldn't even see my hands out in front of me. And at that moment, that's when I realized, symbolically, I'm like, wow, the light in my world just went out, went out. And just running through there, it was just my mother and I, and, there was a man in front of us, to guide us, to make sure they knew where they were going. But then there's another one behind me, I'm sure, to make sure that nobody was left behind. And I just, as a child, that event, the amount of fear and uncertainty, I had no words to describe it. Like in my world, I had no language to describe that event. And that event was my really defining moment. And it followed me through all of my adult life. And it took me a very, very long time, almost 30, 40 years before I can even talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty impactful story for an 8-year-old to go through. That's a lot.
Yeah. And and my family, so we fled and we went to Thailand during that time. So we crossed the Mekong River and went to Thailand. And I stayed in Thailand at a refugee camp for 8 months. And and I, without even realizing it afterwards, then we came to the United States and we ended up being in Idaho. And, that in experience, I don't know if you ever been in Idaho.
I've been where I've been to South Dakota, so I could just imagine how Idaho is. It's like the middle of nowhere. I'm telling you, it's like a different world out there in the Midwest.
That's right. You got it. It was kind of like that, right? It's almost like that is a whole adventure of itself, And at that time, in the early 80s, my family was one of 3 Asian in the whole town.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was the only Asian graduating from my high school class. I was one of 2 Asian students in the whole school.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah.
So I wanted to just point something out real quick. First and foremost, your English is amazing. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what's, but you know what? I get it though. I get it because English is my second language. So, and of course, Kat, your English is I'm not sure it is, right? English your second language?
I grew up learning both, actually.
Okay.
My mom and spoke mostly Spanish to my caretakers when I was younger, but I grew up here, so I started learning from school when I was here. So,
but it's still like your family's primary is Spanish. So same thing, right? Like you have that mentality, and I don't know if this happened to you, and I'm pretty sure it did in Idaho, where like you get bullied over.
Oh my God, that was
bullied.
trauma.
Got bullied.
Yeah,
so
that in itself, right? That itself was like a lot part of my childhood trauma that I had to get through, And what most people don't realize, and I think for me, the reason why everything, I feel like every skill set that I've acquired, right? It goes back to that moment. It goes back to that moment of what happened to me as an 8-year-old child, having to run in the middle of the darkness, running through the bamboo forest, and I, once I was able to do the personal work, I just, I had the question also, like, how did I get through that, right? How did I get through that moment? And it wasn't until, years later, I was like, man, I was a kick-ass 8-year-old.
Badass 8-year. And do you at this age, or Do you ever think about what was going through your mind? Because I know I've gone through some stuff. I've never told my story. I haven't told my story, but um, something happened to me around that age. But I don't
Yeah.
remember some stuff. Do you remember what you were thinking about during that age? Like, what were
Oh,
your thoughts?
absolutely. Absolutely. I just remember thinking, wow, first of all, it's like I could feel my mother's fear. Like
Mm.
I can feel everybody's fear at that moment. And I just remember running, running, running. And then in my child's mind, right, I got to the point where all of a sudden I'm like, I stopped. I stopped and what I did was at one point, I'm just like, I'm not going to run anymore.
Mm.
And I don't know if I actually did it or it's in my head, but I just literally, I stopped and I remember, the 8-year-old girl. And I was like, I had a little boy's haircut because my father cut my hair. You know what I mean? My father cut my hair and I'm just like this little skinny little thing. And I remember thinking, you know what? I'm not scared of you. So the people that I was running from, Brenda, Kat, just so you know, it was my own countrymen.
Mm.
Because I know even as a child, if at that moment, if anybody found me, they would have just shot me and killed me right then and there.
Mm.
So that was part of the pain. It was like, wow, my own countrymen, if he found me, he would have killed me. And I remember as a child, I'm like, I'm just running and running in the dark. And all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? Boom, I just stood still. I'm like, I'm not going to run anymore. And I turned and I remember thinking like energetically, I was like, do it. Do it. I dare you. I
Oh,
dare
wow.
you to kill me. I'm like, I do it. I am not leaving. I do not want to leave. I dare you. If you need to kill me now, go for it. Do it. And I just, how you lift your head up and you're just like, I dare you. I'm not scared
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah.
Do it right now.
Wow. Wow. You
Wow.
were a firewalker.
Yes.
Holy smoke.
Wow.
Holy
Wow.
smoke.
Amazing.
And right. And that was how I got through it. And, it happens instantaneously, right? Like when you're in the midst of all this, and I'm sure, Kat, you probably relate, in your own, because you've also shared a story about the little girl in you and how brave she was,
Yeah.
like, right, Brenda? It's like anytime something like that happens, it's almost like instantaneous. You don't think about it. You just kind of do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what was the thing that you told yourself in that moment? Maybe your younger self didn't have the language, but now looking back at that experience, what is it that you told yourself, and how do you feel that that's affected you as the person that you've developed into being?
For me, okay, no, that's a very good question. I didn't know it at that time. But what I realized at that moment was the thing that people are scared of the most, right? Some people in terms of phobia, some people like they're scared of public speaking. You know what I mean? It's like they would rather die than get on the stage, right?
It's actually a statistic, and because I was in Toastmasters because of that. Okay, I don't know if you heard of Toastmasters
Yeah, yeah,
International.
yeah.
Because the number one fear, people rather die than be in front of people, and I was one of those. I still kind of am, but I'm working through it.
Yeah. Right. And I remember for me that at that moment, I was like, the thing that scares people the most at that moment, I'm thinking probably the next thing is probably dying, right? Death. I thought that little 8.5-year-old me confronted the very thing that probably was the most fearful thing that anybody as a human, right? It's just human fear of
Yeah.
confronting death. And
Mm.
at that moment, that's what I was confronting. And then the other piece is the betrayal.
Oh,
Mm.
absolutely. I was gonna shine on that must have felt more like a betrayal, like like a family betrayal, because this is your own
Oh,
people.
oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and this like when I think about that, even now, it's just still so raw. I remember when I first did my personal work, one of the things that I the betrayal of that, yeah, again, it's like your own countrymen, and I remember as a child, one of the things that I had to kind of come that made me question was, it's like, what is it about me? What is that about me that was so awful that I couldn't even be alive? You know,
Yeah.
why is my existence so awful?
Oh my goodness gracious.
You know, and so I was like, I couldn't comprehend. Like, on one hand, here are this, at any moment, given the opportunity, they would have killed me. But then on the other hand, I knew that I had a purpose. And so I was like, okay, God, why did you bring me into existence only to be hunted down, to be killed? I'm like, I don't get it. And so I kind of waffled back in terms of getting so angry at my countrymen. I'm like, how, I hate you. How dare you, right? And I also really got mad at God,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
I've
And
been there.
Because he's supposed to be this wonderful being. He's loving, but then you wonder, like, why does he allow these type of suffering, these type of situations, right? Especially when it's an innocent person, or children, especially.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and like me, like, it's like, why would you bring me into being only to make me feel like my life am I so bad and so awful that I'm being hunted down?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got so much older that I went back into this moment and I actually confronted the countrymen.
Mm.
Wow.
Was I able to step into his shoes and realize how difficult of a decision he would have to make? How much pain he would have to be in order, if he had to kill me, his own, neighbors, right? His, it wasn't until then that we realized that we were both in such awful, awful, awful place for whatever the circumstance. And I was able to forgive him.
Mm.
That's wonderful.
That is beautiful. What a
That's
beautiful
beautiful.
story of forgiveness. I mean, that takes a lot to be able to self-reflect in such a way that you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes and even forgive that kind of intent towards you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think, the biggest for that moment, the biggest thing was, I was like, I got through because, that's a little, I was like, I remember, I'm like, oh, I'm so courageous.
But you know what? You know what I want to know? I want to know what did they do, like, when you did that? Like, when you were like, oh, like, stood up like that, brave. Like, what was their reaction? Do you remember?
I think so this is kind of ironic. And I know, like, Kat, you have a psychology background, you do, energetically. You know what happened when I reflect, and when energetically, when I did that? Anytime you do something like that, that is so powerful, what happens is, energetically, it's almost like a splash of energy into the world. Everything just went right. Powerful, powerful energy. And so what happened, I realized what happened to me at that point was, I unleashed
Mm.
my spiritual being. I unleashed at that moment. And as a child, I also, because at that moment, I unleashed, and I left that part of me right then and there. I almost had an out of body experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Powerful.
energetically, right? Because anytime, I mean, people are made out of energy. I mean, imagine that child, that 8-year-old, when, it's so raw.
Yeah.
I love that. The
They probably
two,
didn't expect that.
yeah. The two defining elements that I'm hearing are there's just like so much duality in the story, right? On the one hand, I'm hearing about all this courage, right? And on the other hand, there's this polar opposite of betrayal, right?
And fear.
And
Oh,
fear,
yeah.
right? How do you think that affected you in who you've become today? Because I mean, you're an amazing person and you've accomplished so much. And I want to assert that this was an experience that really defined who you are and your personality. So how do you think that this has affected you and what you've accomplished?
I love that. I love that you're asking me this because one of the conversations that I have, because I work with I work with attorneys all across the U.S., all over a country, and one of the things in terms of communication, and it's really talking about communication, right? One of the things, the skill set that developed as a result of the experience was the fact that it's the same language, is that life will present to us a duality. And what happened as a result of this experience was I learned without realizing that I learned how to hold the duality of whatever moment that is coming my way. That it is possible for you to have fear on one hand and then to also have courage on the other hand. So once you realize that there's this conflict that you're involved in, whatever problems that you're facing in life, most of the time when you're like having a really struggle, it's probably because the duality just presented itself. You're probably dealing with duality. In this situation, it was, the fear of death or whatever it is and betrayal. And then there's this incredibly courage and also the sense of purpose of like, I have meaning. This is not by mistake. There is a purpose here, why I'm here. And I guess for me, the biggest thing is my capacity to hold all of these really just, intense emotions until I was ready to deal with that at whatever level I am. I think that has been probably one of the biggest strengths and the biggest gift out of this scenario.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That really is amazing. So
yeah.
What would you tell a woman or a little girl or someone who's in a similar situation where they're either in a really hard time, right? Where they're dealing with some kind of betrayal or some kind of fear. What kind of tips could you give them to kind of cultivate that complete opposite, that courage or whatever it is that they need to get through whatever they need to get through? What would you say that would be?
One of the things, and just life, right? Life happens, and whatever challenge that you have, it's always going to feel like it's so big. And the things that I keep telling myself over and over again is that I am bigger than my problem. Whatever is happening at this moment, I always tell myself, I'm bigger. I am bigger. And the moment that I remind myself about that, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm bigger. Then all of a sudden, the way I think about that is like, okay, if I'm bigger, how am I going to solve this? What do I need to do if I'm bigger than this? That means that there is a solution. What do I need to do to deal with this?
So beautiful. So beautiful. And stay tuned next week for more Babes Unscripted with the beautiful Sue.
Thank you for tuning in to Babes Unscripted. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode and found it both entertaining and insightful. If you want more unfiltered and unscripted conversations, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to hit that bell icon to get notified when we post new episodes. Remember, life is unscripted, and we're here to embrace every moment of it with you. Until next time, stay unfiltered, stay authentic, and stay fabulous. This is your host, Brenda Paz and Kat, signing off Babes Unscripted. Bye now.